Hello. So I'm going to be talking about the transition from the 20th century city to the 21st century sustainable city. I've developed and the challenges and opportunities to get there. These are 12 silos I've identified, and I'll go starting from the top: production, buildings, materials, water, land use, health, energy, transportation, education, government, waste, and food. And in the middle now you see a bologna sandwich. And I really see that as the 20th century city right there. Distinct layers, infrastructure and capital that does not connect together and does not work together synergistically. So I'm going to go through 3 infrastructural examples that I see for how we can start thinking differently about how we build our cities. So first I'm going to start with buildings. We've got a lot of buildings in our city, so that's a good place to start. This is a 20th century building, as we all recognize. 21st century buildings, you start to look at green roofs where you're growing the food for the building on the roof. You're starting to look at water catchment where the building itself's water is starting to be held on site as opposed to going into the larger sewer system. You're starting to look at atrium spaces like this that not only bring energy down, light energy down into the building so you use less lighting in the building, but also create these amazing staircases so people would rather walk up the stairs rather than take elevators, which is maybe not as healthy. Starting to look at aggressive recycling programs outside the building and inside the building. So the building itself is starting to sort and manage waste. And then also starting to build showers and bike storage so that people can ride to work alternatively, take showers, and be able to have that as part of their lifestyle in the building. Starting to look at really innovative energy technologies such as enthalpy wheels here, which is very cool if you guys haven't heard of it. And also really, really innovative building monitoring systems that take all the pieces of the building, all the information, everything going on, and then displays it on screens in the public spaces so the people occupying the building understand how the building's functioning. 21st century buildings are going to start looking at the site it is on, decreasing its footprint, and starting to allow other pieces of the city to come in public spaces and land use, as well as starting to get the government involved, looking at overall planning strategies and deciding what is a sustainable strategy and what's maybe not a sustainable strategy, and starting to update the building codes. It's going to look at materials. This is a wonderful building in Vienna, starting to wind trees and other types of materials through the building. It's going to start looking at production methods, where actually modular, if done right, can be much, much more energy efficient than conventional construction processes, and can be used for large-scale commercial like we're seeing in China right now. So moving on to bridges. Down here you see a 20th century bridge. Up above you see I think it's a 14th century Italian bridge that actually has shops and food courts built into the bridge, so it's a destination location. Here's a fanciful idea of building wind energy into the structure of a bridge, so you're starting to get that co-benefit of structure and energy. And if we're starting to talk about bridges as destination locations, well, we got to start talking about bathrooms built into bridges. We got to start talking about shelter so that in different types of weather, you don't suddenly go fleeing from the bridge to the different banks. You can actually continue to enjoy the bridge. I really like the idea of a bathroom on a bridge. I don't know. It's something weird about me, maybe. And then here's a great example of a situation I've seen with the bridge. This is a bridge in Manhattan that goes over to Queens, where they just boarded in the sides and turned it into an amazing bar and restaurant. And it is a great space to be in. Now think of how many bridges we have in Louisville, and think of how many times we could do something unique like this to create a really fascinating building. Also starting to look at building green space and land use into bridges, where it's not just serving an engineered structure, it's actually starting to take on a character of its own and having co-benefits. Other co-benefits can be starting to run utility scaffolding under the bridge, so you're not building it alongside the bridge and spending extra money. The mayor mentioned we don't have a lot of money, so we got to use it really smart when we're building infrastructure. Also looking at signage, not only talking about the usage and function of the bridge, but maybe even the city itself, so educating an interactive nature with the bridge. And then using new production techniques to create asymmetrical bridges and very thin, efficient, very low-cost bridges in relationship to what we had to use to build in the past. And then finally, government. Well, nobody likes tolls, but if you're going to pay for these things, you need to figure out how to start charging people who are using the bridges versus people who aren't using the bridges. And also coming up with fascinating new materials where you're actually maybe turning bridges into buildings themselves so they can be occupied 24/7 and become very efficient uses of structure and money and resources. So now we're going to move on to parks. We've got a lot of amazing parks here. Here's the Riverfront Park. In its nature, health and land use are part of parks. What I also want to talk about is these other silos that we need to start pulling into our parks in a very conscious way. We need to be addressing energy, so solar and LED street lighting. The technology's here. It uses so little power, solar can power it. Community farms and for food and education. When we develop pathways, bike pathways and walking pathways in park, make sure they connect up with the fabric outside the city so people can use it to use the park to move to other parts of the city. And then water, preserving wetlands and starting to look at developing wetlands as retention basins for the larger city as opposed to very expensive concrete basins. Education, 20th century signage, now starting to become 21st century signage by using smartphones to get a more in-depth knowledge of what the pin oak is. And then production, encouraging hobbyists to start to build infrastructure in the park so they can learn about traditional methods of construction, but also continue to add to the park and its infrastructure. Waste, composting, parks can start to serve as the central conduit for pulling waste in from the local communities and giving a central place for it to be turned into mulch. And then recycling, with benches and other parts of the park, you can start to have materials have a second life within the park. Buildings, we all familiar with this one. Actually building buildings so it starts to become part of the park landscape. And then finally, tickets and the government. We need to have rules of use of the park so that people are using it and able to access it. So finally, with all of this, these ideas, we got to cut across all these 12 silos of sustainability. We started to think about our city smarter, maybe like an iPhone instead of a bologna sandwich. If you think about it, an iPhone is really smart. It has one battery, one case, one screen, but it provides all these services that in the past we need to have a telephone, we need to have a computer, we needed to have a boom box, we need to have all these things. Suddenly it's all in one thing. Can we design cities like that? That's my vision. That's what I like to try to work on. Thank you.